Big debate in the presidential election happened this week. What did we learn about housing policy? Let's talk about it on Today in Mortgages. Hey, what's up, dreammakers? Welcome back to the show. We're talking about what's real, what's hype, and what you should actually be paying attention to out there in the world of real estate and mortgage news. It's Today in Mortgage. Rich, how are you doing? Did you watch the debate?
I did, and we got a lot to discuss today. So let's
Yeah,
get after
we're going to keep it pretty narrow. We're going to avoid all the exciting other things that went on or didn't happen
it. The
during that debate.
noise,
There's
yeah.
a lot of noise, but we're just going to be talking a little bit about housing policy. To help us out, we pulled up an article from Time magazine. It says, here's what Harris and Trump have proposed to help the housing crisis. So, Rich, before we jump into anything to do with this article or to do with the debate, let's just talk a little bit about where we are with housing right now. This article uses the term housing crisis. Is that accurate? Tell me about it.
It is a crisis. I mean, we've mentioned before, we're short at minimum 2 million homes and as much as 7 million homes, depending on the analysts that you're reading. But, it is a crisis, not just the availability of homes, but the cost of the homes today, with a median sales price of $415,000, and in certain markets, way higher than that. My own market in Phoenix, we're at $520,000. So, that's hard for your average home buyer to pay for. I mean, what did the article refer to? Over 70% of people can't afford to buy at today's prices.
Yeah, 77% of American households can no longer afford the median home price, which is pretty startling. And then also it says middle class renters are spending more than 50% of their income on rent. So tough to rent, even tougher to buy right now. So that's the housing crisis. It's real, it's here. Someone's got to deal with it. We're all trying to figure that out. And obviously, pressure is being put on politicians to do something about this. So we had the debate. Not a lot on housing was said, but we do know some of the policy positions that these candidates hold. So we're going to talk briefly about those. And so, Rich, let's start with Kamala Harris. What is her proposed policy to do with housing?
Well, both of these candidates realize that the average home is 28% more expensive than it was in March of 2020. So that's a big difference. While you mentioned rents are up over 26% nationwide. So people are stretched, especially renters. Like you said, 50% of their income going to housing. That's pretty typical in every single community today. So we saw housing discussed in a presidential debate, I think for the first time in a very, very long time. So one of the things that the Harris campaign is talking about is obviously the $25,000 first-time homebuyer tax credit, which is great. Again, doesn't help with your down payment, but it does help with closing costs. It does help replenish the money that you may have pulled from savings. All of that is good stuff too. She wants to build 3 million homes. She's being very specific, that's really good. Now, how she builds 3 million homes is, the devil's in the details, and likely very similar to what Trump is proposing. Harris will need to ease some regulations, maybe offer some of those tax incentives to builders, because she's relying on a private and public funding. So you're going to need the government and the private businesses to work together to make this happen. So ease regulations mainly, and then increase some investments. Now Trump is talking about open up federal lands to build large housing communities. He wants to obviously deregulate. That's the Republican platform on most regulations. So he wants to deregulate that and make it less expensive for a builder to build a home and have them build them faster. So both have great ideas. Now, how this stuff is paid for, again, the devil's in the details, and we'll find out sooner or later. But the important thing is that both of these candidates understand that this is an issue, a giant issue for the average American. And, These plans get formulated. We get very little details, but at least we get to hear what their general ideas around this, and then we get to hear them talk about it, which is rare.
Well, Rich, there's some interesting ideas on both sides. We'll see what happens. Obviously, like you said, how these things get paid for, which of these regulations have to be pushed through Congress. A lot of things can happen, but it's good that it's actually in the conversation. And so hopefully there's going to be some traction on that immediately and also in the next administration. So one of the things that everyone recognizes right now is that rates are just really high. There's this notion, maybe some claims on both sides saying we are going to bring rates down. Rich, is that a realistic promise for a presidential candidate to make?
Well, today, yes,
Yeah.
because rates are coming down. It's like, wow, you're predicting rates coming down. They're coming off the highest they've ever been. So, or not ever, but in recent years, yes, rates are coming down now. So regardless of which president wins, the rates are going to be lower, and they're going to claim it as a victory. I told you.
Mm-hmm.
But a president they can influence policy around interest rates, but the Fed Reserve is what indirectly monitors interest rate. Now, the White House, the executive branch, can influence the Fed. They can propose things to help the economy and that kind of thing, but the Fed's not going to act on that. That's a separate agency. They can ease like they did early in COVID. They can ease and drop the Fed funds rate really low, which obviously brought rates down. But then that has consequences, and those consequences we're dealing with today. So the Fed doesn't want that. I don't think they ever want to go back to that. So there's a healthy market. It's just that, the executive branch can't just say, we need lower interest rates. Let's get it done now.
Some of that pushback that's happening on both sides with economists looking at some of these policy ideas, obviously giving people the $25,000 for that down payment assistance could be that free money that kind of gets pushed back into the economy, pushing inflation back up. Same thing with Harris's small business tax credits and the child tax credit that might be boosted up. Same criticism on the right with Trump and his tariffs, and that might be considered a tax, making everything more expensive and boosting inflation. On our side, we hope none of those things happen. Inflation stays down. It's obviously been trending down. Rich, this week we got a CPI report. Tell us about that if it's good news.
Yeah, came in essentially as expected, which is good news. There were certain components within CPI, like housing, which makes up 70% of it, that came in a bit higher, which kind of gave the willies to a lot of people. But that's no secret. Housing is expensive, and it's part of that inflationary number. And hopefully that starts to tail off, soon.
It's almost like that should just be broken out into its own thing, and then we can get a different inflation number.
Take it out, and you
yeah,
almost have no inflation today.
It's all the problems that we're talking about trying to solve today are the things that are getting in the way of that inflation number coming down. And so it's really interesting to look at. Rich, thanks so much for kind of giving us your insight on such a kind of contentious political season, contentious debate that we had, and the policies on both sides. So you're always good about making us smart on both sides of every issue here. And so we appreciate that. And if you guys are out there interested in knowing how you can be a part of the best network in mortgages, get insight like this and more inside the network, click the grow link below. We'll get you all the information you need to know about network funding and getting to know Rich a little bit better. Hey, Rich, any final words you have to say on this or inflation or CPI, anything else right now?
No, I'd encourage people to read this article that we'll post in the comment sections below or link it. Read it, because it is important that you understand where both of these candidates stand in terms of housing and what their plans are when you have to go to the ballot box, because unless you vote, none of it matters. So your vote is your voice. Make it happen.
Good word, Rich. Well, thanks so much for watching and listening wherever you guys are. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time on Today in Mortgages. Today in Mortgages is produced by Network Funding LP, which is an equal housing lender, NMLS 2297. The content of this program is meant to be a commentary on mortgage and real estate news, and any discussion of rates and or products should not be taken as an individual mortgage or home buying advice or pricing estimates. And any commentary on this show should not be considered a promise to make a loan. All applicants for a loan must qualify, and you should consult a professional regarding your individual loan scenarios for your financial situation. Visit our website at nflp.com/licenses for all state licensing and other legal information.